I feel like these days people put a lot of pressure on themselves to find meaning and purpose in their career, right? There seems to be this false dichotomy between a traditional path, which people more or less classify as like slave labor, working for someone else, being a traditional working class person, having a job, clocking in, right? And then there's the other path, the non traditional path, where you become an entrepreneur, you do some sort of online hustle, or you start a small business and you grow it from there. And eventually you're impacting the world however you want because you made your own decisions, right? And there's the Venn diagram everyone points out, there's things that you're good at, there's things that can be profitable, and there's things that are meaningful. And where that overlaps is where you want to go. Oh, isn't that perfect? Isn't the world perfect? That's not how it works for most people. Most people can't even find one thing that fits the Venn diagram that goes right in the middle where they can profit, find meaning, and be good at it. It just doesn't happen for most people. And that's unfortunate. But it's just the way life is. And I think that's kind of false equivalence between purpose, meaning, and career. Obviously, things that are purposeful and meaningful are valuable in the world and therefore are traded and can become a career path. And so it makes sense. It does map onto it directly. But, I think there are more ways to do it. Like my way of thinking about it, and call me crazy, and can't say it necessarily worked, but my way of going about it was that you didn't necessarily need to make money doing something you found meaningful. I always figured you could make money just any way possible as long as it was kind of low effort or easy or made a lot of money enough that you can tuck it away and then buy yourself some time to find something meaningful. I think that's like another strategy, right? I think most people, if you think of life as like a simulation, like some sort of video game, the meta would be to find something that makes money and you find meaningful and you're good at. But then another meta would be to just find something that's easy or asymmetric and hit big on something and then store that away and then use your time that you bought yourself, right, in semi-retirement to look for something meaningful. That's what I did. That was my path, right? Because I don't find much things meaningful in the world. And I had to get the show on the road eventually, right? People in my generation, millennials, we were the first generation that stayed at home longer than usual, right? Before our generation, people would leave home at 18, right? You go get a job, you get yourself on that hamster wheel and you go, 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 go. You become an adult, right? Whereas millennials, we're more picky. We want to find something that's meaningful. We want to do this. We want to do that. We want to impact the world, right? So we get our credentials. We try and find a career path that's perfect, right? And it results in this longer gestation period where you're staying at home longer with mom and dad, right? Me and my siblings, we all did that. I even stayed till my late 20s. It's kind of crazy. A lot of people, they don't like staying that long. And the unfortunate fact is that a lot of people don't make it out. They stay at home into their 30s. They stay at home into their 40s. And it's just like the way of the times, especially if you live in like a coastal city or like a state that's really expensive, right? I'm from California. It costs $1 million to get a house, basically, right? And so your only hope is kind of like renting with somebody else, getting out of the house, or, that's what a normal job at that age can afford you, right? Paying with rent with roommates and stuff like that. It's just the way things are. But anyways, the way I chose was to stay at home longer because I wanted to take more risks, because I wanted to have something that had higher upside than finding a job. And mind you, that's mostly because I dropped out of college unintentionally. That story is maybe for another video, but nevertheless, I didn't have as many options as other people. So I was kind of forced into this non-traditional route. Maybe for my own good. Maybe it's lucky that that happened because it ended up working out. But if I were to say, I wanted more options in life, finishing school. I only had 1 year left, right? It's still an option now, don't get me wrong. But I would probably go and finish if I could take it all back, right? If I can do multiple things at once. I don't know how realistic that would have been, though, right? So, all is to say that the grass is always greener on the other side. It's just how life works. But I am happy that I made the choices because it definitely worked out well doing the non-traditional route. Did I find it meaningful? Not really, right? What did I end up doing? I ended up doing these different forms of online hustle. One thing led to another and something eventually worked out. And I think that's how a lot of digital entrepreneurs kind of find themselves finding anything that works. They're kind of just trying something, seeing if it works, right? What I started with was called retail arbitrage, right? You're basically listing stuff from one marketplace at a higher price on another marketplace. And when someone buys it, you buy it from the lower price marketplace and ship it to them. It's called like drop shipping and retail arbitrage. That was like big in 2013 when I was first starting. I don't think people really do it as much anymore. Or if they do it, it's kind of like you're up against a bunch of other people doing arbitrage, right? But anyways, one thing led to another, and I figured starting my own brand was the move, right? Now, did I find that meaningful? Not really. I just thought it would buy me more time to find something that was meaningful, right? And to me, that meant finding out what's meaningful. Whether that be religion or spirituality or some sort of science or a message to bring to the world, you get so grand. I think in a spiritual guru sense, if he tells you to ask your inner child what you want to do with your life, I think that's kind of misguided because it's like, I want to drive a fire truck. And me, myself, I just wanted to drive a choo-choo train as a kid. So I don't think it's necessarily practical, or maybe they mean something else, something different by ask your inner child, because I definitely don't want to drive a train anymore. But I do think that us as like children in practice, trying to figure out what we don't want to do, we're kind of viewing the world with fresh eyes in that context. And you can do that at any age. And what I found myself doing is it's kind of like glorifying some sort of concept of meaning and purpose, elevating it so much that it almost becomes unattainable, because you're thinking to yourself, like, what is meaningful? And you're trying to find something that is worthy of your time for the rest of your life. Dedicate your life to, like, do this, like, and you get so romantic about it, right? If you're thinking with your inner child, if you're thinking as a child, or with fresh perspective, like a fresh eyes on the world, right? Awe-inspiring, sort of. You think of things like, oh, I want to, solve world hunger, or I want to help the poor, or I want to solve the hard problem of human consciousness, or I want to create a grand unified theory for physics and quantum mechanics that includes gravity. I want to do this, I want to do that. And it's all this high-flung stuff that everybody at first wants to do with their life, especially if you're like precocious, if you feel like you could. I don't know if many people feel that way, or if it's just something that's just like a budding narcissist would think. Like, I have no idea. But nevertheless, reality slaps you in the face eventually, pegs you down a notch, and eventually you feel like those things are out of reach, or that they're not practical, or that it's probably not going to happen. And so those things kind of get swept away. All of the more romanticized versions of what you thought you could do for the world kind of become not so realistic to your older self, right? Maybe it's not your older self. Maybe it's your more defeated self. Maybe it's your more mature self, right? It doesn't need to be so self-degrading. It can also be elevating. You're reaching maturity. You're realizing what's realistic, what's reasonable, what's achievable from your current status, right? I think a lot of people overestimate their intelligence. A lot of people have an inflated self-esteem, right? That's not as practical. It's like, reminds me of the character from Napoleon Dynamite, who could just never let go of how things were, and that he could have made it to the NFL, and his Uncle Rico. And he's just like, man, if coach had just put me in, I would, I can still throw a football over them mountains, is basically like the character. And it's a joke character because it's referring to this like overinflated ego, this overinflated sense of self that feels like it can accomplish the world. And the longer you hold on to that, the less likely you are to, embark on a realistic path that's actually something practical that you can do, right? And so I feel like I got a little bit lucky at a younger age. I was like 24 at the time. I'm 35, so it was over a decade ago. And I haven't had a real job for over 12 years because things worked out. I'm almost a NEET, not in employment, education, or training. I'm kind of self-employed, actually. So maybe I'm not, I don't know. Maybe I'm not a NEET, but effectively, I didn't have to do much for the past 10 years. Like my workload was basically like spending like a couple hours a week to like manage inventory, right? To sell products in e-commerce, right? And my brand was just selling towels. If I look at the Venn diagram of things that are, I'm good at, are meaningful and whatnot, try and find that thing in the middle, right? The thing that's profitable. And I couldn't tell you that I really care about towels. Like it's just towels. And like most things that people do, they probably feel that way about it. They're like, well, I don't know. Like it's just what I fell into, basically, because they're doing the meta that I was talking about. They're trying to build up some sort of, established finance and establish themselves and then eventually find meaning in life. That's what I did, right? And I was lucky. I sold almost 8 figures in towels, right? Almost $10 million in towels. It's like, that's pretty ridiculous. You might be like, why didn't you just like ride that till the wheels fall off? It's like, I did. It's a home run. I didn't have to work a job for like over 10 years. I did. I did that. Right. And I could pat myself on the back for it. Just be like, oh, good job, good job, good job, good job. But I think a lot of the, the glory in that was I was presupposing the fact that throughout all this time, 10 years, 12 years, trying to find something meaningful, I thought I was eventually going to get there, that I was going to use my time to study everything, basically. And I'm not even joking, literally study everything and find something I found meaningful. And it just never happened. I just ended up thinking that it was meaningful to learn more about everything, right? And I don't know really how to use that, right? That's I can use that to know what exists in order to find something I find meaningful to do or to communicate or to say, right? It almost became this journey of truth seeking. At one point, I thought that I would discover the truth about the universe and then tell everybody about it, right? That was like one angle I thought that I could find meaning in the world. But it always felt so fake. It always felt so forced. It always felt like you're a phony. You're not certain. You need some sort of like experiential, transcendent happening to occur to yourself. You need something like a spiritually transformative experience. I need to, do something. But I never wanted it to be just like, okay, you take DMT and then you find meaning. And then you're just like one of those guys who one-shotted themselves with DMT and is talking about it on YouTube as if it's this grand thing when there's just not really much in it. Like it's like I've taken psychedelics, not DMT, but I just know them as this sort of like false awakening where you get high and you have some sort of experience and it is transcendent. And then you come down and you're still an asshole to everybody around you. And it's like, if it's not practical, if it doesn't make you into some sort of like guru where you can float on a pillow or something like that and be nice to people at a minimum, then what the heck? Right? What does that even do? It's like, I saw a bunch of colors and it was so meaningful and I communed with the universe. And it's like, yeah, nice, dude. You had a very nice experience. Like, what's your daily life like now? Are you having that experience? No. How has it impacted you? A lot of people say fluffy stuff like, oh, it's like, made me feel like I was one with the world. Yeah, when you were taking it. You're not one with the world now. You're very attuned to the fact that there are other people who only care about themselves in the world. You're probably not going to be nice to them, because that's how things work, because you're not high, right? That's a big side rant. Anyways, that energy that I was just showing you, this frustration with thinking something, should be meaningful, finding out it's not that meaningful or transformative, right? And then wanting something organic to happen, right? That I felt like was more sustained. I watch a lot of gurus that say like, oh, if you had a sustained awakening, some form of real enlightenment, it wouldn't be like a drug where you come up and then you come down. You'd always be up. You'd always feel connected. And I feel like that would definitely impact my life and feel like it's sustainable, right? Never happened to me. It's like that is yet another thing that you're wanting to do with fresh eyes at the world, where you're kind of experiencing it through your inner child and you're like, okay, I want these grand things to happen to me, right? Part of it forsakes the journey, right? And I feel like if I were to think about it just solely in terms of spiritual awakening, which is what I found meaningful for the most part in my research, right? Trying to figure out everything, in spiritual awakening, I feel like part of it, if you were to say like the process, is that you don't try to do it. It is spontaneous, but it spontaneously happens once you've gone through this sufficient roller coaster of life where you eventually are like defeated or something. You find yourself like giving up or surrendering to life. And once you surrender, finally, you let go and then poof, right? That's the whole context of the spontaneous form. And I want that for myself. But I had already accumulated all this money and I'm like, okay, what do I do? Like, I lose this money or something? Like, what do I, how do I find God? It's like, do I need to just like gamble until I lose everything and then find God in the depths of my soul as I'm defeated or something like that? It becomes really weird. It gets really weird and almost self-defeating, right? Self-limiting. Whereas people just enjoy their normal lives, not having some sort of romantic vision of spiritual awakening. They just have like a traditional life where they're like going to work, not trying to induce awakening by losing a bunch of money or something like that. And it's not like you intentionally lose money to do that. It's just you find yourself trying to find awakening when you're down, right? Because I ran two different businesses, or I had two different forms of income. It's like selling these towels, which was basically a seasonal business because they get cold and it helps you stay cool in the sun. So it's a summer business. So I would be like feast and famine every single year, where it's like summer's the big time, I'm rich, and then winter is like I'm broke and I need to invest in inventory for the summer at the same time as I'm wondering if summer is going to be bigger than last year or smaller than last year, if I'm on the up or I'm on the down. You don't find out until the summer comes. It worked out well for like over a decade, which is great. That's a home run hit, but it really pretty much just puts me in a scenario where everything's really volatile. And what I was saying was that during the down times, I found myself just like searching for God. And I started to think like, oh, this is how people find God. Like you find God in the down times, and you start looking into these different kind of like teachings where, God, he wants to talk to people who are poor. And then you're sitting here with all this money and you're like, oh shit. Like, I don't know how like relatable this video is. You might be watching it like, you freaking asshole. Why didn't you just be happy you had money and then you like find meaning in the world and do stuff with it? Why didn't you give it to the poor? You could have given it to the poor. Why didn't you do that? You're such a dick. And it's like, maybe I am. Holy shit. I don't know. But I'm being authentic, you guys, all right? So a lot of people, they just like want to brag about it. They just want to take a picture with a Ferrari. It's like me, I don't do that kind of stuff. And like, do I still have a lot of money? Not nearly as much as I did, right? I've done a lot of spiritual awakening, let's say. Like, and the other thing that I did to make money that went well at first was crypto. I did hit pretty good on Bitcoin and Ethereum, especially in 2021. But when everything pans out, my towel business was so volatile and crypto is so volatile that whole experience of just like peak volatility. I don't think many people have experienced as much volatility in their life as I have. And I felt like, okay, if this is like a way to become more spiritual, to find myself in the volatility by learning how to manage my emotions, learning how to not be so up when I'm up and not be so down when I'm down, and that this like kind of like training course that is life would allow me to spiritually awaken through volatility. And that's like the madness theory I came up with, this like mad theory of like spiritual awakening through volatility. That was kind of like maybe it's like a form of like GPT psychosis without GPT, but like, I don't know why I even said GPT, but it's just a form of psychosis, right? Where you just like make up some sort of narrative in the world. And I embody that with my little bio where I say shit coins and spirituality. A lot of people don't see how those two things mesh, right? It's kind of funny. But anyways, through the volatility, I found a little bit of meaning in terms of like trying to manage the volatility, right? So it's like, I feel like I've become a more even keel person through my experience with volatility. But if you just look at my body alone, you can see that there's a lot of damage done there. Like a lot of like stress eating or like letting my hair grow out. Secrets of the universe are more important than just like basic hygiene type stuff. And it's like, you know, it's being a real human at a minimum though. And I'm sharing you that story, right? Trying to find meaning in life. And ultimately, I can't say that I found ultimate meaning, but I found local purpose, right? Figuring out what's right in front of me, the volatility. But I can't tell you that I've found something in the middle of the Venn diagram, right? And if anything, my hope is that some of these rants could do that for me, for you, right? That you would find them helpful, that I can find meaning in sharing experience, right? Without feeling like a fraud, right? That to me was the trick. That to me was the trick. You don't want to be a fraud. You don't want to have like imposter syndrome. It's almost impossible not to have imposter syndrome if you are an authentic person, because authentic people doubt themselves, or rather, people doubt themselves, and authentic people are realistic about that, right? And it's always kind of stopped me from doing different things. It's like, you might think to yourself, dude, you sold $10 million in towels, or almost 10 million in towels. How are you not like an e-commerce guru? Wouldn't you just like, you know, teach that? You're obviously not like, you don't know nothing about that. You know, you made $10 million about that. You sold $10 million with that. You could teach somebody how to do that. But it just felt like times would change. It just felt like that was something that would work at that time. Just like trading meme coins would work at the time when I shared it, right? And then it would pass as an opportunity. It wasn't something I felt like would be around long enough to start teaching people how to do it, and then maybe it'll work out for them. I feel like I capitalized on being early, and I can't give someone a time machine to be early again. So I felt like the only authentic way to go about it would not be to pretend that me being early made me like skillful at it, right? It just means that I'm good at timing things. What am I going to do with that? The only thing I could do with that is kind of find something else that's early, and then tell people that the timing is right for this thing right now, that the timing is right to do that, if that's what I'm good at. But it's kind of like contradictory in that sense, because then I'm not good at this next thing that I'm telling you is the next, and I could be wrong. I've been right like 2 times in a row on these like macro things in terms of like, okay, Amazon's going to be good, home run. Crypto's going to be good, home run. But I don't know what's going to be next. What if the next thing that I think is going to be good, it just isn't that good, right? You can't just like bat 1,000. So being realistic, first of all, right? So it's like why I don't want to become a guru at anything. I don't want to become like a shitcoin guru. I know a lot about shitcoins. I could teach you guys all about that. But is it going to be a good market? I don't know. And I want students to be happy. I want people to be happy with my experience. And it's just such lower stakes to have an audience that takes my words at face value as life experience, not as something that they should apply practically and then come back report to me. It's like, oh, I lost like $100,000 doing this. And I'm like, fuck. All right, well, you know what I mean? It's like, did I do that? Did I cause this person to do that? I don't know, right? I can't push buttons for you, bottom line, but I can talk to you from a grounded perspective and tell you how I think things actually are, right? So if you're sitting there like, oh, you know, some guy who's been self-employed for 10 years trying to talk about meaning and purpose, I'm telling you that what a lot of people think they want to do with their lives do the meta where they stack money and find meaning, that I tried that at least. So you can at least watch this video if you can't relate to it at all. Watch this video in a sense that the grass is always greener on the other side. Yeah, you probably want to stack a bunch of money and then do nothing with your life and find meaning, right? But I know that you're not necessarily going to find meaning like that, right? I think a lot of people share my sense of kind of like self-sabotage when it comes to being authentic in the world, right? And I can explain a little bit about that. It's something that's bothered me, that people who are less authentic, that don't have this like sense of self-reflection going on, they will do more in the world. They will have less of a sense of imposter syndrome, and they just have full confidence. I don't know what their deal is, but these are like kids who will become like gurus on how to, do TikTok shorts, or a kid who just like becomes a guru on how to sell e-commerce. And it went from feeling too young and not knowledgeable enough to do anything to being older than a lot of the people that are teaching that probably know way less than me about a lot of given topics, but nevertheless, they don't appear to have any sort of imposter syndrome. They're more or less just chasing the bag, in their zone, doing their thing. And it almost makes me a little bit jealous that I don't have the capacity to not have this imposter syndrome that blocks me from doing things that are maybe even helpful for the world. Meanwhile, people who don't have imposter syndrome, more or less frauds, in my opinion, right? And I am self-reflective on that. I did read The Catcher in the Rye. I do know the context of that character, Holden Caulfield, that I almost relate to in a sense, that people doing things out in the world appear to be phonies, right? Whereas myself, feel like I'm a good person because I'm authentic and don't want to cheat the world by pretending I'm more than I'm not. Meanwhile, they are completely comfortable putting themselves in any mask, putting the mask on, kind of like playing the role they want to be, kind of faking it until they make it. I've never faked it till I make it. That's what makes me. It's like that's like my shit. It's like I'm proud of that. But other people have done so much more for the world because they don't have this thing of like self-sabotage. So that's my journey, and I acknowledge that. But if I were to share with you, kind of like, maybe if you did more for the world, like I was thinking starting this YouTube channel 5 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe I would have had different things to say. Maybe now is the best time for me to start this, right? Maybe now I finally have, things to say that are more authentic, more meaningful than if I were to have started this same format of a channel 10 years ago. And now I can say, I don't have imposter syndrome. I don't really have imposter syndrome in sharing these videos with you because I know that they just come from an authentic place. But, maybe years ago I would have just tried to put on a mask and been like, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a guru. I know what to do. Like, right? Whereas this, I'm more or less just pouring my soul out saying like, no, I don't know what to do. You probably don't know what to do. But if you did want to stack money and find out what to do later, you might not necessarily find it just because you stacked the money. Right? Now I'm repeating myself. Anyways, I'm going to sign off. I hope you guys got something out of this. But I don't know if I have like a cohesive like moral of the story. But I did just want to share this with you guys.